It was a chilling and rainy night, the clock nearing 2 a.m., as my friends and I navigated the winding road that hugged the river's edge. The darkness enveloped us, save for the intermittent sweep of our car's headlights. On one side of the road, a steep drop-off threatened to plunge us into the frigid waters below. As we continued our journey, a small pull-off came into view, and it immediately seized our attention. There, sitting ominously in the inky darkness, was a car with no lights on, an inconspicuous silhouette against the night. Instinctively, we slowed down, our curiosity piqued. As we drew nearer, our headlights illuminated a surreal and unsettling scene. A lone figure stood beside the motionless car, and in that fleeting moment, the image was etched into our memories. The person's shirt was drenched in blood, a sinister crimson that seemed to glisten in the faint light. It cascaded down the front of his shirt like a gruesome waterfall. A shiver ran down our spines as the realization sunk in. This was not a mere accident or breakdown. Something deeply sinister was unfolding before us. A heavy silence filled the car as we continued to drive past, our eyes locked onto the bloody figure whose gaze never wavered from the ground. It was a decision we would question later, but in that tense moment, we turned the car around, our hearts pounding in our chests. The rain drummed relentlessly on the roof, and the distant roar of the river below echoed our unease. As we approached the stranger once more, I rolled down my window, the cold rain splattering my face. He remained eerily still, his clothes drenched in blood from an unknown source. It was impossible to discern whether the blood was his own or belonged to another unfortunate soul. Desperate to offer help, I called out to him over the cacophony of the pounding rain and the river's thunderous rush. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of concern and fear. In the eerie silence that followed, his response sent chills coursing through my veins. His words were distant and sorrowful, carried away by the howling wind. "I'm fine," he muttered, his voice a hollow whisper. Dread hung in the air, and I found myself unable to reply. Something about his response, delivered with such haunting detachment, filled me with an indescribable unease. With a lingering sense of dread, I slowly rolled up my window and drove off, leaving the enigmatic figure behind. My friend wasted no time in dialing emergency services, alerting them to the haunting encounter we had just witnessed. We hoped fervently that help would reach the stranger in time. Approximately half an hour later, as we made our way back along the winding road, the scene had transformed. Ambulance lights painted the darkness with an eerie glow, and a couple of police cruisers were parked near the pull-off. The truth emerged like a chilling revelation. It turned out that the bloody man had slit his wrists, teetering on the precipice of despair in the cold, rainy, and pitch-black night. His intentions had been clear as he stood by the river's edge, contemplating a tragic end. In the aftermath of that chilling encounter, I couldn't help but reflect on the dark and fragile places the human mind can lead us. It was a stark reminder that, in the dead of night, on a desolate and rain-soaked road, we had been mere witnesses to the brink of tragedy, and the echoes of that haunting night would linger with us for years to come. Story 2. It was a few months ago, a night cloaked in darkness, when the eerie and unsettling events unfolded. The clock had crept past midnight, marking the late hours as I embarked on my journey home from a night at the theater with a friend. Our play had stirred emotions and contemplation, but little did I know that the night's enigma had only just begun. My route homeward led me through rural America, where the road stretched on in obscurity, devoid of street lamps and distant houses. The solitude of the night weighed heavily upon me as I drove, my headlights the sole source of illumination on this winding, desolate path. As I crossed a bridge, my eyes caught sight of an inconspicuous car parked on the side of the road. Its engine hummed softly in the stillness of the night, and my initial concern soon gave way to nonchalance. After all, it was not uncommon for vehicles to pull off in this spot, even at such a late hour. Yet, this unassuming moment marked the genesis of a disconcerting series of events. As I passed the parked car, I glanced into my rearview mirror and noticed, with a growing sense of unease, that it had pulled out behind me. The night had grown eerily quiet, and the hair on the back of my neck began to prickle as I watched the car's headlights fall into line behind me. At first, I brushed it off, attributing it to mere coincidence. But soon, a nagging sensation of dread gnawed at my gut. The car began to tailgate me aggressively, its headlights casting harsh beams onto my rearview mirror. This behavior, while not entirely unheard of, was rare in these remote parts, especially given the treacherous curves and the ever-present danger of deer darting across the road. Frustration and confusion mingled with my growing paranoia as I continued to navigate the lonely, serpentine road. Then, as if scripted by some malevolent force, the situation took a horrifying turn. The car's headlights flickered and extinguished abruptly, plunging the road into utter darkness. Panic clenched my chest, and my heart raced as I strained to see what was happening behind me. To my horror, the vehicle remained impossibly close, even in the pitch-black night. My mind raced with thoughts of possible scenarios, none of them comforting. Desperate to escape this enigma, I pushed harder on the gas pedal and accelerated, determined to put distance between myself and this ominous presence. In an audacious maneuver, the car sped up and veered around me, its ghostly form passing by in a blur of steel and shadows. But the relief was short-lived. Almost immediately, it came to a sudden halt directly in front of me, as if it had hit an invisible wall. Terror surged through my veins, and my instincts screamed at me to flee. I swerved to the side, my tires screeching on the wet road as I overtook the stalled vehicle. The car's sudden stillness was unnerving, a sinister omen hanging in the air. As I sped away from the scene, my heart pounding in my chest, I glanced anxiously in my rearview mirror. The road lay empty behind me, the mysterious car nothing but a memory. The forest had swallowed its dark secrets, and I dared not look back again. Upon arriving home, I sprinted inside and locked the door, consumed by an overwhelming sense of dread. I peered out my window, but the menacing car was nowhere to be seen. The night had reclaimed its silence, leaving me with a haunting mystery that would haunt my thoughts for weeks to come. Questions swirled in my mind, but answers remained elusive. Why had someone driven with such sinister intent? What lurked in the shadows of that car, hidden from my view? The night had concealed its secrets, leaving me to grapple with the unsettling enigma that had unfolded on that desolate, rain-soaked road. Story 3. This happened around 7 years ago. I was living with a roomie and going to school, and I was around 22. I'm a female. It was a weekday evening, and my roommate had informed me that she was going out clubbing and staying over at another friend's house. She had invited me, but I didn't really feel like going. Instead, I made plans to sit on my ass, watch junk TV, and work on homework. Around 10 p.m., I went to the gas station to get some candy and energy drinks. I remember that day pretty well, because I had gotten out of classes pretty early and had just gotten my hair done, and I was feeling pretty confident and cute. I went into the gas station, and there was 3, probably in their 20s, guys just lurking around. They just looked like your average frat boys, and I remember that one had shaggy blonde hair and was covered in tattoos. I noticed one of them nudge the other and nod in my direction as I picked out my snacks, but I didn't pay much mind. They paid before I did and left. After I got my stuff, I walked out to the parking lot and saw them sitting in a beat-up, shitty car, and all 3 of them seemed to be staring at me. I hopped in my car and headed back to my house, which was literally only a few minutes from the gas station, and they started their car and followed. I didn't think much of it, figuring they were probably just heading the same direction as I was. However, I lived pretty deep in a subdivision with a lot of turns, and after a minute of pulling in and making several turns, I noticed they seemed to be following me. I got nervous since I knew I was home alone, so I kept driving past my house. I pulled out of the neighborhood and back onto the main road, and they were still following. I just drove for a while, and they sped up and really started getting close. Then they started flashing their lights and actually pulled up next to me and rolled their window down. The part of me that has faith in humanity thought, what the fuck? Do I have a low tire or something? But when I looked over and saw them leering at me, I knew it wasn't anything like that, and I immediately began to panic a little. We were on a more deserted stretch of road now, and they were swerving almost like they were going to bang into my car, but I just sped up. All I could think was, should I drive to the police station? It's like 15 minutes away from here, and there's a ton of stoplights on the way. What if I have to stop and they block my car or something? Fortunately, by this point, I was getting somewhat close to my sister's house. She lives pretty close to me, about 15 minutes away, but in the opposite direction of the police station. My hands were shaking and I was trying to navigate the road with these two nozzles speeding up and slowing down and trying to nudge me off the road, but I picked up my phone and dialed my sister. Tell him to get his gun and come out to the driveway, please. By this point, I was near tears. I dropped the phone and one of those fucks threw something, I think a plastic Coke bottle, at my driver's side window when they sped up near me. I finally saw my sister's house and then pulled into her driveway. The entire house was dark. No porch light. Nothing. I was so fucked. I misheard her. They weren't even home, and there aren't any neighbors that would be close enough to run to. The guys pulled up behind me so I couldn't back out of the driveway, and they all jumped out. They all started walking up to my car, and one of them even reached for the handle and yanked on it. By this point, I was fumbling for my phone again. Fuck. Do I have a weapon in here? Should I grab my phone and try to run? Should I back over these bastards or just stay locked in the car? In the split second that I looked up, two things happened. First, I made eye contact with the shaggy-haired blonde guy who was the one yanking on my door. He didn't look angry or drunk or anything. His eyes were dead and predatory. While I was frozen in terror, he looked cold, like he had done this kind of thing before or something. The other guys were trying my other doors, but I couldn't break eye contact with the blonde, who was inches from my face and only separated by a glass window. Second, I finally saw a shape move behind him in the darkness, and I heard a loud bang. All the guys stopped and looked, and my hero, my brother-in-law, stepped out of the shadows, creeping up from behind the house. He pointed his gun at them and told them to get the fuck out of there. They ran back to their car and sped off, screaming profanities at Josh and me. When they left, my sister ran outside and brought me in. The driveway scene sounds in writing like it took a long time, but in reality, it was only a few minutes. Because of that, and because of how dark it was, we didn't get the guy's plate number. We called the police and they came out to get our statements. They said they would have someone patrol the area to keep an eye out for any cars that were the same make/model/color, but that it would be hard to catch the guys without the license plate number. Unfortunately, nothing ever came of it. They never caught those assholes. I can only wonder what they wanted with me, what they were planning for me, or what would have happened if Josh hadn't been there.